So I thought I'd put this little analysis out. I haven't been able to monitor the happenings post soccer aid because it's been a busy week, and the news here in the United States is overwhelming. But this is why I keep saying I'm going to be Larrying for at least the next 4 years. So I was thinking the other day about this whole what There's a couple of fans have used this term, which I think is interesting. They are using the term ever since Louis had said to the little girl who asked him at soccer aid if he knew Harry Styles, and Louis said, "Oh yeah, we're still friends. I was in a band with him." You weren't just in a band with him, Louis. You were like in the Beatles 2.0. Come on, guy. Um, so I found it interesting that people are using the term soft disclosure because it in a way it is. If you look at the origins of that term, it's a little bit more operational or formalized. But in a way, it is used in public relations. It's like the gradual, uh, revelation of the true nature of a dynamic, which at this point, it's one of the best kept secrets ever. And not one of the best kept open secrets ever. But I wanted to maybe do a bit of a past deep dive on the origins of why there has been such a pull for Larry to be honest. And I don't think it's necessarily because people are trying to out individuals who don't want to come out yet, because the coming out, which a lot of people you come out during Harry Styles concerts, and there's a reason for that too. Beyond just the fact that Harry makes it such a safe space for people to come out, it is that the narrative early on formed from, and what veteran fans have said is that there was a lot of horsing around between Harry and Louis. And then when One Direction came to the US, which was the market really to go global, that management was worried about, some of the conservative elements in the US market and being against the Larry thing, which back then in the 2010s, the early 2010s, definitely was true. So when you look at how the the kind of the closing in of Harry and Louis began, there clearly was some commercial reasons for this, because you were looking at targeting a demographic of very young kids, little girls. I mean, Nicole Scherzinger, when she put them together, said that, yeah, little girls are going to love it because they were putting together their photos. And one of the things that kind of comes out when you follow the trajectory over the years is that there was not the level of acceptiveness of LGBTQ plus that we do have now. And a lot of these teen audiences, they didn't have money on their own to buy the records. They'd have to have their parents buy it. And so if the parents were in these conservative markets in the United States, they would not buy it. So yeah, there was definitely a convergence of these commercial um, objectives that led to the closeting. Now, there's always been those few people like the Elton Johns that initially were closeted, that were allowed to come out. And then there were the people who were closeted that were never allowed to come out and they got punished when they did, like George Michael, which comes to this point I have too, is that how is it now that there are still, if we factor out that it's a personal choice, that they don't want to come out, assuming that this Larry thing is true, which I keep thinking it is, what other factors beyond just personal choice are at play here that have it that they don't come out? Well, if we trace the origins all the way back to when Harry was 16, because I think people forget how young Harry was. When I say baby Harry, when I look at those old videos of him on X Factor and I refer to him as baby Harry, I'm not infantilizing him. I'm literally calling out just how young he was. He had just turned 16, because Harry was born in February, and then March of 2010 was when the X Factor was. So he had just turned 16 a month before. Now, that is really, really young if you think about the sort of adolescent psychological, psychosocial development of boys, right? I do think, though, that European men are more mature at a young age. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. Okay. So, Where was I here? Okay. Now, I I think from 16 to 18, you have these two young lads that are from, non-entertainment families, from working class, middle class families that really just wanted to perform and enjoyed performing because we have evidence that they performed in high schools or the British high school equivalent, and were suddenly, put into this world where they were, you know, kind of commercialized. And yet it was coinciding with some very pivotal benchmarks in adolescent development. So the origin of why they probably are not still coming out is because if you look at the zeitgeist that happened, the conditions it was formed, and of course the overlords, the gods above that were referenced in the song "You and I," are literally told. And there's even footage of interviews where um, they're even saying that they don't. Management is discouraging them talking even about having girlfriends because some of them did, because they don't want to ruin the fantasy for these fans that one day they could have a shot with one of the boys, right? Which is such a classic marketing thing when it comes to um, boy bands and all that. Speaking of boy bands, I saw this footage of New Kids on the Block like the other day, and I forget who it was. I think it was, and I can't remember their name. It was not Donnie Wahlberg. It was God, who was it? Anyway, New Kids on the Block were doing a concert, and oh my God, one of them is 55. So I think it might be. It's not Donnie because I can recognize Donnie unless I'm not recognizing Donnie. But oh my God, it's like he did not look 55. He looked better than a lot of 35-year-olds. He looked like he was probably as in good shape as a 25-year-old. Like whoever his workout trainer was. Oh my God. Okay, back to Harry. I'm sorry. I'm a little old. So anywho's. Oh, where am I? Okay, so back to Hera. Back to Harrow. To Harry. Um, and Lou. Okay, so what I was going to say is that Harry and Louis were told by the gods above. So the gods above, and when I referenced New Kids on the Block, it's that they were very controlled as well by their management. At least from what I've seen, I haven't looked into them as much, but a lot of these boy bands they really are because of the age that they come into the industry. And I always blame Simon Cowell the most because Simon Cowell was the one who really knew he could benefit the most. But I blame Simon Cowell because he implanted the thought in Harry and Louis that if they were to come out, that they would really basically destroy their careers. And of course, Simon had a very ulterior motive because he was going to make money off the band. Simon saw the Simon saw the money on the table by the way the girls have reacted to Harry and in the auditions. So, long story short, this kind of implanting a thought that if the truth were revealed, that all this love would be lost, people would feel betrayed. They'd say you were liars all these years. That there'd be an incredible loss of their fandom, even though they're no longer under the Modest Management label. They're all independent now. They were put that thought in their minds at a seriously young age, and so they are, um, you know, things that imprint and things that sort of speak to levels of survival because Louis has been supporting his family and sent he sent his younger twin sisters to school. um he had to talk to them about finishing school. I mean, he's been such a father figure, but you look at how that kind of searing into the fear circuits in their mind at a young age, telling them that, you could destroy the band, your fans will stop buying you, you're basically going to be destroyed and annihilated, which was a very similar messaging that Lance Bass has spoken about. Thank God Lance Bass is out, and he learned we all love you still. We don't care if you're gay. We've all. I mean, we've all outgrown it. I think maybe there was some truth to it when they were younger, when the fan base was particularly very young, that yes, maybe coming out would have really affected sales, but that's not the case anymore. However, logic and reason are one thing, but when your emotions are so, especially primal ones, when they're so amplified, your mind's going to go flatline. You're not going to listen to it. And plus, you had so many of these industry people that really did know better at the time, maybe, sort of, maybe not really. These veteran sort of giants of the industry, like the Simon Cowells and Louis Walsh. Louis Walsh, when he managed Boyzone, majorly mentally fucked with them too. Like you see, watch the Boyzone documentary. I still can't watch it because I just can't bear to see Ronan Keating cry because he was one of my many Harry Styles of my generation. Ronan Keating, I still think he's just the bomb, right? But Ronan is so much like Harry in that he's so emotional that it's so hard for me to see Ronan upset. It really is, especially because he was under coercion, as was the entire band. And Louis Walsh admitted that he would plant false stories just to get publicity for Boyzone. And Louis Walsh, remember, was one of the judges on X Factor. So long story short, the level of coercive tactics in the controlling of these boy bands, it didn't start with the One Direction. It's been around for a while is what I'm saying. But the fear that you could destroy the lives of your best friends was what kept Lance Bass in the closet, even after the handlers were gone, right? And the same thing with what I am hypothesizing. Again, I keep saying this. I am speculating. I don't know these people, but I do suspect there's a bit of that that's happening if it's not completely voluntarily their own choice to not come out. Is it Simon Cowell has put the fear of God into both of them, that they're going to lose all their fans, that they're going to be fringed out of the market, but they're going to be basically, you know, uh, irrelevant, and that they will lose a lot of opportunities that they still have. I mean, these are two men in their early 30s. They still have a good 15, 20 years left, if not more, because men are allowed to age in entertainment. Women are not. And I know people get mad when they say that, but there's a reason why, that you see these pairings in films of much older men and younger women in the leading roles, because women are just not allowed to age unless, okay, we can talk about hormonal aging. I'm not going to go there, but let's just say HRT is your best friend if you're over 40, okay? Okay. Um, but so you've got, they still have a good 2 decades and a bit, at the very least, of prime earning, because they've got the fan base. And even though they have such a strong LGBTQ plus sentiment, they still carry those like threats, that I would call it, of Simon Cowell and company, who've probably convinced them that if they come out, that they'll destroy their whole lives and their whole careers and the people who depend on them, like their staff and their family. And it's absolutely fucking wrong. Because fundamentally, it didn't happen to Elton John. George Michael didn't destroy him. It's just that the record label and the lawsuit that happened with them, really took a toll on George Michael. But I would say that a lot of the people that are thinking that they're not going to be loved anymore, the Louis and Harry, I think that's the role where the fans inadvertently and obviously come in, is that nobody's going to love these guys any less. In fact, I think that there's a whole market that they're not capturing, that if they came out, would increase their bottom line, their sales, increase their cultural iconic status. And quite frankly, I do think the timing and the zeitgeist now is prime, because no one has ever cared that they were, quote unquote, gay. No one gives a shit. In fact, people love the courage that it's taken to kind of sustain themselves. I do think that there's been times where they have not been together, and that that's part of the natural cycle of being young and in love, and all that they were going through and living in the fishbowl in these really extraordinary circumstances. But I don't think that they are necessarily not together anymore. The relationship likely went through the different stages where it's really like hot and heavy, passionate, all this fighting, got a little toxic for a while, and has settled in. Um, so I really do think that they weathered a lot of storms, which again only reinforces this fan support. But I do think that the fundamental fear is that if they tell the truth, that they're going to be labeled liars, that they're going to be labeled, um, they deceived us all these years. They're going to people are going to feel gaslit that, oh, you went through eras where you were denying things. No, they're not. People see it for what it is. I mean, thank God for social media and the fandom and all the analysis and all this. But at this point, we've been processing it with you guys. We have been processing this with our frustrations, with really a lot of righteous anger against psycho and modest management, and of course Simon Cowell. But we are not mad at you guys. We're not going to love you any less. We don't ever feel we've been deceived. I think when we felt deceived was when you've stunted, when you've had to deny because we could tell you were being manipulated and coerced by management to do so. We've only been deceived when you haven't been your authentic selves, but we always knew that the deception was not your own volitional choice. We knew that there was pressure behind it, that you wouldn't do it if it was not there. Give your fans some space and a break. I'm not criticizing, by the way. I'm not criticizing at all, but I really hope that with the colossal amount of Larry stuff that is out there, that Harry and Louis realize that we will not respond with anger. We will not respond with boycott. We will not respond with accusations of being cheated, manipulated, lied to, deceived, gaslit. None of that. We're not going to. We will put blame because there's been so much talk about what you were put through. We will find that a confirmation and a vindication of what we've been saying all along, that it was psycho. It was Simon. It was modest management. But we will, if anything, we're just going to celebrate. Thank God the truth is out. We love you, and we love you even more.